was labeled infertile by my mother-in-law, and to make matters worse, my wife sided with her, helping paint me as the villain. So I did the only thing I could. I divorced her, married her cousin, and became a father to twins. It's a story I never imagined I'd be telling on Reddit, but here I am, reaching out for advice from strangers, feeling like my life has spiraled into some kind of bizarre drama I never agreed to. I'm 35 now, and the events of the past few years have been a whirlwind, each moment twisting more than the last. Let me take you back to the beginning. I met Evelyn in college during our sophomore year. Both of us were business majors, and we ended up in the same group for a marketing project. From the start, Evelyn stood out, a whirlwind of energy, ambition, and a vision for her life that was clear as day. She was driven, constantly pushing toward the future. Graduate with honors, land a job at a top firm, climb the corporate ladder, and one day, start her own company. Meanwhile, I was a go-with-the-flow type. But her ambition, her fire, sparked something in me. We started dating a few months later, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had direction. She pushed me to aim higher, to want more, to become the best version of myself. We graduated together, both landing solid jobs at competing firms. Those first few years of our relationship were tough. Long hours, tight budgets, and hardly any time together. But we managed. 3 years in, I proposed to her. I had been saving for months to buy the perfect ring. I had this whole romantic evening planned out, a fancy dinner, a walk through the park where we'd shared our first kiss, and then, under the stars, I was gonna pop the question. But life had other plans. The day I was set to propose, Evelyn called me in tears. She'd been passed over for a promotion she'd worked tirelessly for. She was devastated, questioning her career choices and her worth. I couldn't go through with the elaborate plan I had set up. Instead, I grabbed her favorite takeout and a bottle of wine and showed up at her apartment. We sat on her small balcony, comforting each other about the unfairness of corporate life, and it hit me. There would never be a more perfect moment. I pulled out the ring, asked her to marry me, right there, surrounded by empty takeout containers and in our work clothes. Evelyn said yes, and in that instant, everything felt perfect. Then came the wedding planning. And with it, my first real encounter with Karen, Evelyn's mother. I'd met Karen a few times before, but always in group settings where she kept her best foot forward. Now, faced with the responsibility of planning her only daughter's wedding, Karen's true colors began to shine through. Nothing we chose was good enough. The venue, too small. The food, too exotic. The music, too modern. She criticized everything, down to the color of the tablecloths and the style of my tuxedo. Evelyn tried to play the mediator, but it was clear she was struggling to stand up to her mother. The breaking point came when Karen insisted we invite Evelyn's ex-boyfriend, Tom. Apparently, Tom's parents were old family friends, and it would be rude not to include them. I had had enough. I put my foot down, and to my surprise, Evelyn backed me up. It was the first time I saw her really stand up to her mother, and I was proud of her. The wedding was beautiful, despite Karen's best efforts to micromanage everything. Evelyn looked radiant, and as we exchanged vows, I truly believed we could handle anything life threw at us. The first few years of marriage were good. We both advanced in our careers, bought a small house in the suburbs, and started talking about having kids. Evelyn wanted to wait until we were more financially stable, which made sense. We were doing well, but kids are expensive. Plus, Evelyn had big plans for her career. Around our 5th anniversary, I started feeling ready for fatherhood. My brother had just had his second child, and seeing him with his kids stirred something in me. I broached the subject with Evelyn, but she was hesitant. She was up for a big promotion and didn't want to risk it with a pregnancy. I tried to be patient, but as the months passed, I felt like our life was on hold. We had countless discussions about the right time to have a baby, but there was always a reason to wait. A big project at work, a planned vacation, a possible job change. Finally, 2 years ago, Evelyn agreed it was time. We were both excited, picking out nursery colors and debating baby names. But as months went by with no positive pregnancy test, our excitement started to fade into worry. After a year of trying, we decided to see a fertility specialist. The doctor suggested we both get tested to rule out any issues. I went for my tests right away, eager to get answers. My results came back normal, which relieved me, but also added pressure on Evelyn. Evelyn, however, kept putting off her appointments. At first, I understood. She had a huge presentation at work. Then she caught a nasty flu. But as weeks turned into months, my patience started to wear thin. Every time I brought it up, Evelyn got defensive or changed the subject. That's when Karen began to get involved. She'd call Evelyn constantly, asking if there was any news. When Evelyn would visit her parents, she'd come home upset, saying Karen had been pressuring her about grandchildren. I tried to stay supportive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn was letting her mother have too much control over our lives. Then, last Thanksgiving, it all came to a head. We were at Karen's house, surrounded by family. Karen had been drinking wine all afternoon and was in rare form. She started talking about how all her friends were becoming grandmothers and how she was starting to feel left out. Then, as if on cue, she turned to me and said, "It's a shame Evelyn married someone who can't give her children. I always knew you weren't man enough." The room fell dead silent. I felt like I had been slapped across the face. Evelyn sat there, staring at her plate. I tried to explain that we were still trying, that these things take time, but Karen wouldn't stop. She kept making jabs about my masculinity, saying Evelyn should have married Tom instead. At least he came from good stock. I couldn't take it anymore. All the frustration from the past year came spilling out. I stood up, slammed my hand on the table, and told everyone there that I wasn't the problem. My fertility tests had come back normal, but it was Evelyn who hadn't even bothered to get tested yet. The aftermath was ugly. Evelyn was furious with me for betraying her trust, and Karen was on the warpath, calling me every name in the book. I left the house and spent the night in a hotel, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. When I came home the next day, Evelyn was still angry. She accused me of humiliating her in front of her family. I tried to explain that I couldn't stand being blamed and shamed for something that wasn't my fault, but she wouldn't listen. Tensions have been high ever since. Evelyn is still giving me the cold shoulder. Karen has been relentless, calling and texting nonstop, demanding that I apologize to both of them. I've blocked her number, but she just finds new ways to harass me, using different phones, sending messages. It's exhausting, and I don't know what to do anymore. I love Evelyn, but lately, I can't shake the feeling that maybe we want different things in life. I'm starting to wonder if this marriage is even what I thought it was. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering her or incurring Karen's wrath. The weight of it all is wearing me down. To make matters worse, Evelyn's cousin, Emma, reached out to me yesterday. Emma's always been someone I got along with. She's a few years younger than us, and while Evelyn followed the family's path into the business world, Emma always went her own way, becoming a teacher instead. Emma told me she overheard what happened at Thanksgiving and wanted to check if I was okay. We ended up talking for hours, and it was a relief to finally have someone on my side, someone who truly understood how overbearing Karen could be. For once, it felt like I wasn't completely alone in this mess. Now, I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wants to fight for my marriage. I want to try and get Evelyn to see how toxic her relationship with her mother is. But then, there's this other part of me that wonders if it's time to just walk away. I'm 35 years old, and I want to be a father. I don't want to wake up when I'm 45, bitter and childless, resenting Evelyn for taking that chance away from me. I never thought I'd be in this position. What should I do? Am I wrong for defending myself? Should I have just kept quiet and let Karen keep tearing me down? How do I make Evelyn see that her mother's behavior is destroying everything we've built? It's been a month since my original post, and to say a lot has happened would be an understatement. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support. Your comments helped me gain some much-needed perspective on my situation. After reading through your responses, I realized I couldn't keep living in this limbo, with all the unspoken tensions and resentments building between us. I needed to have a serious conversation with Evelyn, one that would bring us out of the silence. So, I took a day off work and asked Evelyn to do the same. I wanted us to have time to really talk without any distractions. That morning, I made Evelyn's favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup. It's something I used to do every Sunday when we first got married, but somewhere along the way, we'd stopped making time for those little gestures. As we sat at our kitchen table, the familiar smell of pancakes filling the air, I felt a small glimmer of hope. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. I started by apologizing for my outburst at Thanksgiving. I told her I regretted the way I handled it, but I couldn't apologize for the feelings that led to it. I explained how hurt I had been by her silence, how I had felt unsupported, blamed for something that wasn't my fault. To my surprise, Evelyn broke down in tears. Through sobs, she confessed that she had actually gotten tested months ago and discovered she had fertility issues. She had been afraid to tell me, thinking that I would leave her. She'd been carrying this secret all along, letting me believe she was just procrastinating on the tests. I was shocked, hurt. I couldn't understand why she had kept this from me, but I tried to be understanding. I asked her why she thought I would leave her over something like this, and her answer shattered me. She told me that growing up, her mother always drilled into her that a woman's worth was tied to her ability to have children. Karen had made sure Evelyn believed that if she couldn't give her husband children, he would inevitably leave her for someone who could. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. So many of Evelyn's actions over the past year suddenly made sense. Her reluctance to get tested, her defensiveness whenever I brought up children, her silence when her mother relentlessly attacked me, it was all rooted in a deep-seated fear. Fear that she wasn't woman enough. We spent hours talking that day, really opening up to each other in a way we hadn't done in years. We agreed to start couples counseling to work on our communication and to help Evelyn work through the damaging beliefs her mother had instilled in her. We even started researching adoption and IVF options, feeling like we were finally on the same page about our future. For a few weeks, things were looking up. Our counseling sessions were going well, and Evelyn seemed more relaxed, happier than she had been in months. We were reconnecting, rediscovering the love that had gotten lost under all the stress and resentment. But then, Karen got involved again. Somehow, she found out about Evelyn's fertility issues. I suspect Evelyn's sister might have let it slip. She's always been a bit of a gossip. Instead of supporting her daughter through such a tough time, Karen went on a full rampage. She started calling me daily, leaving long, rambling voicemails, blaming me for stressing Evelyn out and causing her fertility problems. She'd say things like, "If you were a real man, you'd have given her a baby by now." And, "I always knew you weren't good enough for her." I tried blocking her number, but of course, she just used another phone to call. Then she started showing up at our house unannounced, demanding to speak to Evelyn alone. The first time it happened, I came home from work to find Evelyn in tears on the couch, with Karen pacing around our living room, ranting about how we needed to try harder, how Evelyn wasn't doing enough to fix herself. I asked Evelyn to set boundaries with her mother, but she always had an excuse. "That's just how mom is," she'd say, or "she's just worried about me." It felt like we were right back where we started, Evelyn unable to stand up to her mother, and me feeling like an outsider in my own marriage. Things came to a head last week. I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Evelyn with tickets to a concert she had been wanting to see. Instead, I walked in to find Karen in our living room, going through our personal documents. She said she was looking for our medical records because she didn't believe Evelyn really had fertility issues. She thought we were lying to cover up my inadequacies. I lost it. I told Karen to get out of our house and to stay out of our lives. I told her that her behavior was toxic, that it was destroying her relationship with Evelyn. But Evelyn, instead of backing me up, broke down in tears. She told me I was being too harsh on her mother. That night, after Karen left, Evelyn and I exploded in a fight. I told her I couldn't keep living like this, with her mother constantly interfering in our lives and Evelyn just letting it happen. It felt like I wasn't even married to Evelyn anymore. I was married to both of them. Evelyn accused me of being selfish, of not understanding how difficult this bliss was for her. In the heat of the moment, I said something that I would regret for the rest of my life. I told Evelyn that if she couldn't stand up to her mother, maybe she wasn't ready to be a mother herself. It was a low blow, and I knew it as soon as the words slipped out of my mouth. The slap came immediately. Evelyn slapped me hard, then locked herself in our bedroom. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, feeling lost, confused, and drowning in guilt. The next morning, Evelyn was gone. She left a note saying she was going to stay with her parents for a while to clear her head. 5 days have passed, and I haven't heard from her. Karen, on the other hand, has been blowing up my phone, sending angry messages. She's telling anyone who'll listen that I kicked Evelyn out, that I abandoned her. Some of Evelyn's relatives have called, accusing me of abusing her. It feels like I'm trapped in some twisted alternate reality where I'm the villain for wanting a healthy marriage, for wanting a relationship without constant interference. I don't know how much longer I can live like this. The stress is eating at me. It's affecting my work. I've been distracted, irritable, and my boss has noticed. My health is falling apart too. I've lost weight, I'm not sleeping, and every day feels like I'm on edge, barely holding it together. Through all of this, Emma has been a solid support. She's been checking in on me, bringing meals, listening whenever I need to vent. She understands the family dynamics better than anyone, having grown up in it herself. She shared stories about how Karen treated her when she chose to become a teacher instead of joining the family business, which helped me understand Evelyn's behavior better. But it's also made me realize just how deeply ingrained these toxic patterns are. I'm grateful for Emma's friendship, but I can't shake the guilt about how close we've become. Nothing inappropriate has happened, but I know how it might look to others, especially with Karen spreading lies about me. I'm seriously considering asking Evelyn for a trial separation. I think we both need some space to figure out what we want and if we can make this marriage work. But I'm terrified of what Karen might do if I bring it up. I wouldn't put it past her to try and turn the entire family against me. I never imagined I'd be in this situation. I always thought love was enough, that if you cared about someone, you could work through anything. Now, I'm not so sure. I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't even know how to save myself, let alone my marriage. Any advice on how to move forward would be appreciated. How do I protect myself without completely burning bridges? Is there any hope left for Evelyn and me, or am I just prolonging the inevitable? And how do I deal with Karen's smear campaign against me? Right now, I feel pretty lost, and any guidance would be welcomed. 3 months have passed since my last update, and my life has completely turned upside down. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, but I'll do my best to fill you all in. After Evelyn left, I tried to give her space. I thought that maybe some time apart would help both of us clear our heads and figure out what we really wanted. But as days turned into weeks, I realized something fundamental had shifted between us. During this time, I threw myself into work. I started seeing a therapist on my own, trying to gain some perspective on my marriage and my own role in all of this. I realized that while Karen was a huge problem, Evelyn and I had our own issues with communication, issues that existed long before her mother's interference. About a month after Evelyn left, she finally reached out. She wanted to meet at the cafe where we had our first date. I was hopeful. Maybe we could work things out. But when I arrived and saw Evelyn sitting at our old favorite table by the window, I knew it wasn't going to be the reconciliation I had been hoping for. She looked tired, sad, but there was a resolve in her eyes, something I'd never seen before. We ordered our usual drinks, latte for her, black coffee for me, and for a brief moment it felt like old times. But then Evelyn started speaking, and I could tell this wasn't the conversation I had imagined. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking and had come to the conclusion that she didn't want to continue our marriage. She said we wanted different things in life, that the stress of the last few months had shown her we weren't compatible. I was stunned. I asked about couples counseling, about working on our communication, but Evelyn had already made up her mind. She said she'd realized she wasn't ready for children, and maybe she never would be. She knew how important fatherhood was to me, and she didn't want to hold me back from that. What hurt the most was when she admitted that Karen had been a huge influence in her decision. Apparently, Karen had convinced Evelyn that I was emotionally abusive, that she deserved better. Evelyn actually apologized to me for letting me mistreat her for so long. It was like she had completely internalized Karen's words, and I no longer recognized the woman I had married. Evelyn handed me divorce papers, already signed. She told me her lawyer would be in touch about dividing our assets. Then, without another word, she got up and left, leaving me sitting there with a cold cup of coffee and the ruins of my marriage. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the pain. I stopped answering calls from Evelyn's family, tired of defending myself against Karen's lies. My own family was supportive, but they lived across the country and couldn't offer much practical help. Emma was there for me, though. She would come over with takeout, force me to go for walks, or just sit with me when I needed company. She understood the family dynamic in a way no one else did, and it was comforting to talk to someone who knew exactly how manipulative Karen could be. As I spent more time with Emma, I started to see her in a new light. She was kind, supportive, and seemed to understand me in a way Evelyn never had. I found myself looking forward to our time together, feeling lighter and happier when she was around. One night, after a few too many beers, Emma confessed something that took me completely by surprise. She had feelings for me. For years. She said she never acted on them out of respect for Evelyn, but now that we were getting divorced, she couldn't keep it in anymore. I was conflicted. Part of me felt like it was too soon, that I should be grieving my marriage, but another part of me recognized that Emma made me feel happier than I had in a long time. We agreed to take things slow, to give ourselves time to figure out if this was real, or if it was just into everything that had happened. We started dating quietly, knowing it wasn't exactly conventional. Dating your soon-to-be ex-wife's cousin? Hardly the norm, but it felt right. Emma understood me in a way no one else could. She saw my pain, my history, the broken pieces of everything I'd been through. She encouraged me to keep going to therapy, to dig through the mess of emotions left behind by the divorce and my fears about diving into a new relationship. But of course, when Evelyn and Karen found out, all hell broke loose. Karen started spreading rumors, wild accusations that I'd been cheating on Evelyn with Emma all along. The family, who had once been sympathetic toward me, turned their backs. They swallowed Karen's lies, leaving me to wonder just how far she could twist the truth. Evelyn was hurt. She was angry. She accused me of moving on too quickly. The irony of that was not lost on me. Evelyn, the one who left and filed for divorce, now upset that I was trying to move forward with my life. But I was done. Done letting Karen and Evelyn control me. Done allowing them to dictate my happiness. I know this update might make me seem like the villain, but I'm finally doing something for myself. Emma and I are happy. We're taking things one day at a time. The divorce is moving forward. It's painful, yes, but for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to feel optimistic about the future. It's not the life I once imagined for myself, but maybe it's the life I need. I'm learning to trust myself, my own feelings, my own needs, rather than constantly trying to appease everyone else. It's a work in progress, but I'm getting there. It's been a year since my last update, and what a year it's been. I never could have predicted where life would take me. But here I am, happier than I've been in a long time. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. It wasn't easy. Karen tried to contest it, claiming that I'd been unfaithful throughout the marriage. Thankfully, my lawyer was able to disprove her allegations, and the judge saw right through Karen's attempts to manipulate the proceedings. In the end, we settled on a fair division of assets, and I got to keep the house. Emma and I are still together, and our relationship has only grown stronger. 4 months ago, we moved in together. It's been amazing. Emma gets me in a way Evelyn never did. We communicate openly, about everything. Of course, blending our lives hasn't been without its challenges. It hasn't always been smooth sailing, but we face it all as a team. The biggest news, though? Emma's pregnant with twins. We found out a couple of months ago, and we're absolutely over the moon. It's almost ironic, considering the fertility struggles Evelyn and I went through. But life has a way of surprising you. We weren't actively trying, but we weren't preventing it either. When Emma showed me the positive test, I felt a rush of emotions. Joy, excitement, fear, all tangled together in a way I'd never experienced before. We're converting the spare room into a nursery, and Emma's been reading every parenting book she can find. I'm nervous about becoming a father, especially to twins, but I'm also excited. Emma's calm confidence reassures me. She keeps reminding me that we'll figure it out together. When we shared the pregnancy news with our families, the reactions were mixed. Emma's parents were thrilled, but Karen? She hit the roof. She started spreading more rumors, claiming Emma had stolen me from Evelyn and trapped me with a pregnancy. Ridiculous, I know. But some people actually believed her. Evelyn's reaction was unexpected. For the first time since the divorce, she reached out to me. She congratulated us, but also shared how hurt she was. I understood her pain. Part of me even felt guilty. But I also knew I couldn't live my life based on Evelyn's feelings anymore. We had a long, honest conversation. It gave us both some closure. She admitted that she'd let her mother influence her too much and that she regretted how things ended between us. That conversation seemed to be a turning point for Evelyn. She finally stood up to Karen, telling her to stop spreading lies about me and Emma. It was too little, too late for us as a couple, but I appreciated it nonetheless. Evelyn and I aren't friends, but we're civil now. And honestly, that's more than I ever thought we'd get to. Karen tried to cause trouble one last time. She showed up at our house, unannounced, demanding to speak to Emma. She tried to convince Emma that I would abandon her and the babies, just like I had abandoned Evelyn. Emma, bless her, stood her ground. She told Karen in no uncertain terms to stay the hell out of our lives. I'm so proud of how Emma handled that. She's strong in a quiet way, always sure of herself, always sure of us. It's refreshing after years of walking on eggshells with Evelyn and Karen. As for me, I'm still in therapy. I'm working through the issues from my marriage, preparing for fatherhood. I've reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my marriage, and I'm building a support system independent of Emma's family. Work has been going well too. I got a promotion a few months ago, which couldn't have come at a better time with the babies on the way. Emma's taking a year off from teaching after the twins are born, and my new salary will help us manage that. Looking back at everything that's happened, it's been a wild ride. There were times when I thought my life was falling apart, but now I can see it for what it was, everything falling into place. Emma and I are excited to start our family, and I'm looking forward to this next chapter of my life. It might not be the happy ending some people expected, but it's my happy ending. Life doesn't always go according to plan, but sometimes the unexpected turns lead us exactly where we need to be. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned, even the painful ones. And now, I look to the future with hope and optimism.